So one of the things you'll have noticed if you've ever installed an Android application that you downloaded from the Android Marketplace is that before you actually install it, it's going to present to you, hey, these are the permissions that this application is asking for. So for instance, let's say this application wanted to access the camera on the device. It's going to present you with something saying, hey, just so you know, this application you're downloading is going to access the camera, so you better trust where it's coming from. So if you want your application to be able to access certain things on the device, you need to explicitly say, I need permission to use this particular thing. So let's look at an example here. I just created a blank project, haven't done anything with it, and we're going to do something where we're actually going to test the Wi-Fi state of the device. In my application, I need to know, hey, is the user's Wi-Fi connected? Are they able to actually connect to the internet through Wi-Fi? So all I'm going to do is go into my main.java file, and in the onCreate here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to access the Wi-Fi state. So the way in which we do that is I need to create an instance of the connectivity manager, and I'm going to call this conman for short, is equal to, and anytime we need to get a service from the system, so this is actually a service, we need to actually ask to get access to that service. And to do that, we use the get system service method. And now we need to put in, what is the name of the service that we want to actually get to? Well, we're going to reference it by way of a static constant in the context class. And that is context.connectivityService. So here we're basically asking for permission to get access to that service. So I have a quick fix, which is basically I need to add a cast to that, which is fine. Okay, so now that I have a reference to the connectivity manager, what I want to do is I have a text view in my XML file, my UI, and I just want to print to that whether or not the Wi-Fi is connected or not. So let's go over to my XML file. Now, when you first create an application here, the default text view, it doesn't have an ID associated with it. So we need to give it one. So the way in which we programmatically give an ID to an item here is we obviously want to set the ID attribute. What you would think we would do is just to say @ID / and then my text view. But this is how you reference something that already exists. So instead what we do is to say @+. And this basically means, hey, we want to add this ID into our resource file. So now that we have this, we can go back here, and now let's get a reference to that text view. So TV is equal to find view by ID, and now r.id.myTextView. And let's go ahead and cast that to text view. So now we need to figure out, okay, is the Wi-Fi actually working or not? So what we're going to do is to create a Boolean value here, which is just a true or false value, and I'm going to call it Wi-Fi. And now we're going to use the connectivity manager to get that information. So conman, and then we're going to call the get network info method. And this is going to request some information from the system about the network. Now it's asking us what type of network information do we want? Well, we want Wi-Fi. So we're going to pass in a static constant of the connectivity manager class, and that is type Wi-Fi. So this is going to get us the information about the Wi-Fi. If we want just a Boolean true or false about whether it's connected or not, we can actually then use is connected or connecting method here, which will return a Boolean. So again, this long statement is basically asking the system, hey, we have Wi-Fi or not, and we're storing it in this Boolean value. So now let's use that to actually print out the text. So I'm just going to say if Wi-Fi, which is basically saying if Wi-Fi is true, we're going to set the text of that text view. So tv.setText, and we're going to say the Wi-Fi is on. Now, obviously here for the else statement, we're going to say tv.setText, the Wi-Fi is off. Okay, so now let's run this and see what happens. So we're going to run it as an Android application. Let's go to the emulator, wait for this to launch up. And you can see we have an error. Now this is expected based on what I told you before, but let's actually go over to DDMS and go into Logcat. And we can see what the problem is here is that we have a security exception. Basically, we have not asked permission to access the network state. So this is what we have to add to our manifest file. So let's go into the manifest. So inside of the manifest, we can see we have this permissions tab. So let's click that. And now what we basically want to do is we want to advertise the fact to the user that, hey, can we have permission to access the state of the network? So what we're going to do here is we're going to click add, and what we want to choose is this uses permission. We're basically going to say, hey, this application uses this particular permission. So we'll do that. And now we can click this pull down and we can see all of the different permissions in which we can request access to in our device. So for this one, we just want to choose access network state. And now if we go to the XML, you can see this uses permission tag that's put in. So now when the user goes to install this application, it's going to warn them, hey, this application wants to access the network state. So let's go ahead and run this now and see what happens on the emulator. And you can see now we have our text view and it says the Wi-Fi is off. Because on the emulator here, it's actually using my network connection to emulate a mobile data network. So this is actually the expected behavior. But you can see what happens if you want to use a specific API or piece of hardware on the phone. Oftentimes you're going to have to explicitly put in the request to access that. And this again will warn the user before they install your application that they want it, because you don't want applications accessing your camera without you knowing about it and things of that nature. So that's the basics of using permissions here. We're going to also be looking at this in other movies in this course.